What's going on, guys? Back again, 2 in 1 day. So I had some time off today, and we're going to hammer a couple videos. In front of you is Sig's 238, chambered in 380. We'll kind of do a quick, brief synopsis of how this gun came to be. So this gun, kind of its sister counterparts, the Kimber Micro 380, and then Springfield was making their 911 pistol in 380 as well for a while, are all derivatives of the original design, which was the Colt Mustang. So I was born in the early 80s. If you guys grew up with the old guys of that generation, you may remember that as kind of the quintessential go-to pocket gun of that era. But what Sig has done here is basically taken that design and made some modern improvements on it. So it is actually heavier. One of the first things you'll notice is that if we were to compare it to a modern Mustang, we have flats here. The Mustang was much more rounded. It actually had a little less slide mass. Now the weight difference to me is sort of negligible, but there are some direct benefits from it. A little more weight to the gun obviously does inhibit recoil a little bit. And then some other things that they've done as minute changes are they have changed the angle of the feed ramp. Try to pop a flashlight up here and give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So the only issue the guys really had with the Mustang was that the Mustang was picky with hollow points. We were generally running Powerball. We were running some of those more trunicated bullet profiles. So when Sig decided to clone that design or make their own version of it, they opted to do some minute adjustments to the feed ramp so that they would run a broader variety of ammunition outside of ball. But here's what I like about it. If we look at it compared to similarly sized guns, it's almost the same size as Ruger LCP. It's probably more actually like a Ruger LCP2, but also came out and competed with Sig's Bodyguard 380. Now the big difference here is we get a single action design, so the trigger is just much easier to navigate. Anytime we shorten up that sight radius, we take a barrel and we shorten it up as we do with most pocket guns, it puts more on you or me to kind of keep everything aligned as we are on the target, right? So those variables in the front sight between the rear notch become far more drastic on paper versus say a 5 or a 6 inch barrel where we can have that same margin for error and still have a closer hit to center of the target. But cool stuff here. So one of the things they did in terms of kind of cloning a mini 1911 in this and the Mustang and then in the other guys as well is they've omitted the grip safety. I'm a huge 1911 guy. If you guys have seen my videos, I've done a lot of stuff with them. But let's call it what it is. If we look at guys who are running a 1911 on a course or in combat, the most common failure is failure to engage the grip safety. So by eliminating that variable, we've come into a system where we're getting rid of the biggest problem or let's say the weakest link in the design as far as being able to present and fire under duress is concerned. Now when they did that, one of the cool things is now that we no longer have the grip safety, so we can safety down is live, safety up is obviously safe, but before we would ever load the gun, right, before we put a mag in, before we chamber around, we can engage that safety. I like that for people who maybe aren't gun people, who want to have a gun but aren't training every week or don't have years behind their belt of handling. So even if we did have a mistake, even if I was a total bonehead, putting my magazine in, chambering my round, and I'm pulling the trigger the whole time, nothing happens until you flip that safety off. The traditional 1911 design, or many of its counterparts, were all guns where we had to actually put the mag in, chamber the round, and then engage the safety. So it did kind of create that moment where we could, if we were not paying attention or if somebody was less than familiar with the design, have a disastrous result. But what we're looking at is basically a slightly larger overall design in terms of width. We're going to a full metal gun here. They're an alloy frame. They are a steel slide and barrel. Sig has made no less than 30 different variants over probably the last 15 years here. And everybody likes it for different reasons. It's not a bad primary carry gun. Guys do jump on 380 and say, oh, it's not efficient. It's not, advisable for defense. I mean, hey, listen, I'll take a bigger caliber if you can comfortably control that all day. But you know what? There are situations where having a gun is the first rule of the gunfight. So I really personally do not feel better about 3 rounds of 380 flying at me than I do 9. But again, there is some truth to that, and then there's also some misnomers. So I'll let you guys all kind of make that decision for yourself. So this was a 238 Nitron. It was kind of their base model. Basically meant all black. It came with black grips. I have a thing for Jesus pieces if you guys haven't watched my other videos, so we throw these on a lot of designs. This one is single-sided in terms of the safety. It is probably the only thing I don't like about it. Reason is, I'll a lot of times run this as my off-pocket gun. So if I carry on one side, I will run the gun on my other side. The event that I can't get to my primary weapon or that it runs dry dry or that I am disarmed or somebody thinks I'm disarmed, I still have a gun on my off pocket. So really do like ambi safeties, and they do offer that on a lot of models, but did not come with the Nitron, as it's their base model. Also offer night sights on a lot of models. This one is just 3-dot sights, but there's no functional difference. One of the things that we have seen in the kind of itinerations going forward since the originals were made is that we did not get front strap checkering on the very, very early models. So today they're actually doing that, and I like that. I have to be careful not to scratch it up with the ring, but definitely gives you a little bit more purchase. So what's cool is that, I mean, if we took the two guns that I would put in terms of that I have shot that are low recoil for 380, I would say the Glock 42 is a really nice gun. I would say that the 238 and sister guns by Kimber and Springfield are all pretty soft shooters. You know, we get into those LCPs, we get into those Smith & Wesson bodyguards, a lot of those small subcompact Taurus TCP, Keltex P238, and they're great guns. I mean, they'll hide behind a pack of cigarettes, but they are the sort of thing where you get 50 or 100 rounds through them at the range, and you're like, all right, let's shoot something else, just because due to being under 10 ounces, you know, they do tend to be a bit more severe. I think Sig spec on this is in the 13-ounce range, maybe a little closer to 14, but I believe it's in there. And so it doesn't seem like it would make a lot of difference, but it does. The other nice thing is that with single-action pistols, we actually get a sear block in the rear, much as we would with a 1911 design, and I think that inhibits a bit of the recoil, too. So what you'll notice is I retract the slide here. We actually hit a form of resistance right there, and so what this is doing is it's actually inhibiting a bit of that force before it continues to travel rearward and eject. You shoot one next to the other, it's a difference that most people can actually tell. So yeah, love the gun as a backup gun, love it as a deep concealment gun, ankle gun, pocket gun. You know, and again, if I'm going up against somebody in a close range scenario, the sight radius is plenty for me. It's great at many things. It's not the best at everything, but Sig is great quality. I'm not knocking the competitors either, but I do tend to prefer the Sig over the Kimber. The Springfield is a nice close second. But again, you know, preference to design. Kimber builds the prettiest versions of these, you know, start to finish. Sig has had some really cool looking additions. But if we're going for function, I'm going with the Sig. They've taken that Colt Mustang design, made a number of improvements to it. And then while we don't picture that here, they are also offering this in what they call the 938. 938 is basically the same idea, slightly larger, but built around the 9mm cartridge. And my problem with that gun is that, yes, it is reliable, but when they converted this 380 design to 9, they took the front of the mag out, right, to accommodate that longer 9mm cartridge, but the feed lips remained the same length. So what happens a lot of time, if we have the 938 configuration and we go to check our chamber, which is pretty cool too, by the way, so cocked and locked is how they are designed to be carried. If you're not comfortable with that, I'll talk you out of it, or I'll at least try to, due to most guns having an internal plunger safety. But the problem with the 9, right, was that when we went to go check our chamber, even just a little bit out of battery, with the minute you dropped your magazine, the top round that was in the mag is no longer in the mag and would actually fumble out. Now, you'd still have one up top, but the top round from the magazine would actually end up in the gun and come out at the bottom. The reason that was that when they redesigned it for 9, they didn't make those feed lips any longer. I am sure there is some wisdom in the Sig world that I am unfamiliar with. And again, both the Kimber and the Springfield versions of that 9mm gun are prone to the same thing. So of them, I actually like the 380, and there's not a lot of guns I'd say that to. We'll give a big shout out to Smith too. I have not shot their M&P Shield EZ in 380 yet. I would imagine it is probably a very soft shooter as well, but again, we're getting into a larger classification of gun. So guys, if you're looking for a pocket gun, you're looking for something high quality, reliable, versatile, that you could do far worse than the Sig 238. Nice talking with you guys. See you soon.